It's Monday the 4th of December. Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thanks for joining us this week. We've got plenty to talk about with a tropical storm up near the Solomon Islands, which may well be a severe Category 5 storm by this weekend out on the Coral Sea. Now, the latest tracking, we will show you that. For now, Australia is at a higher risk than New Zealand is. And in the New Zealand area, southerly winds in many places at the moment. It was a weird sort of Sunday because we saw parts of the North Island cold, cloudy and wet, and parts of the lower South Island and eastern South Island sunny, hot and dry. So we've got a bit of a change going on, southerly winds this week, but then westerly winds, they are about to arrive, and that will bring a lift in temperatures nationwide and some drier weather into many places as well. So let's kick off with the 3-day rainfall map. And like I say, the North Island, it's got some patchy kind of rain around. This low pressure zone from Australia moved in at the weekend, fell apart. Now we've got the leftovers, not much rain, around about 20 to 40 millimetres, and that's spread out over 3 days. So that should not cause much in the way of complications other than just being frustrating that it's once again in the same part of the country. Elsewhere, just a few showers, mostly dry. The 7-day departure from normal. Now this one's an interesting map because it shows you very clearly where that tropical cyclone is expected to come down. So the blue areas, wetter than average for this time of year, and the red, drier than average. White is normal. So a lot of New Zealand into that drier than average phase, a little bit wetter than average in the northeast, down around Fiordland, the usual rain. But this storm here coming down, you know, those in Queensland watching it very closely, for now, most of it's offshore. So the tracking of this storm as it carries on into the Tasman Sea, that'll be critical to locking in rainfall for Australia and severe weather risks as we move along. Here's where it is as we recorded this on Monday morning, smack bang over the top of the Solomons. They've had 36 hours of these thunderstorms. Now they've been pushed out over the Solomon Sea. This will likely become a named storm either right here in the edge of the Solomon Sea or just a little further south, and that is the Coral Sea. And this is a breeding ground for major storms. So let's get back into the forecast because as you see, we kick off this week, we don't see that storm. It's not really in our forecast, it's just, it is on our weather map, so we have to talk about it. But here for Tuesday, easterly winds for the top of the country, still got those showers, mostly around Wairoa and Gisborne, Mahia Peninsula. High pressure crosses the South Island, mostly settled for you, and right out over towards the Chatham Islands. On Wednesday, that low is still kind of stuck there. It's not a proper low. It is just stuck in a frustrating spot between one big high leaving and the next high, which isn't very powerful, moving into the north. So this system just kind of gets stuck there for a day, but it is moving away. It's not going to be a major rain event, at least not at this stage. Keep an eye on it in case it stalls, but for now, it is moving away from us. And Wednesday marks the change of the westerly winds returning. So if you do live over here in the east and you are very sick of the rain, this is what you want to see because it blows the rain clouds away and it shifts them down to Fiordland and not East Cape, the opposite side of the country. So as we move through the week, you see this on Thursday, the high to the north, west to southwest winds, couple of showers over here in North Taranaki, Waitomo areas, maybe a couple of showers popping up around Canterbury during the day. But for the most part, it is dry across New Zealand, especially up here in the sodden eastern side, and more thunderstorms and heavy showers just there in the southeastern corner of Australia. So let's take a look at the big picture going into the weekend. We've got that storm up here, likely to be a named tropical cyclone, and now it is over the top of the Coral Sea. Solomon Sea is just there, Solomon Islands. So it's tracking along like this. Then it curves, we think it's going to curve southwards and come in down towards the Tasman. But this big block of high pressure is in a great spot to protect New Zealand for now. So for now, we've got this big high pressure zone coming in for the weekend. And on Saturday, the high pressure zone stays over the North Island all the way up to the Coral Sea, keeping that storm system well to the north, but also encouraging. This is the sort of El Nino side here, this nor'wester, this hot nor'wester coming out of Australia. This is what we talk about when we say how El Nino can bring us these hot pulses of air out of Australia. This could be one here on Saturday. Nice warm day, but I've got to point out that's a cold front, which means one hot day and then it goes back to colder. Speaking of El Nino, really interesting to notice that both NIWA in New Zealand, government agency, and BOM in Australia, government agency, just this week matched Weather Watch, and many others in the private sector who've been saying for months now, this is not a normal El Nino. So very late, but glad to see NIWA and BOM both on the same page as the private sector. It makes life a lot easier when we're all on the same page. So they are finally catching up. Asks a lot of questions about why big government agencies take so much longer. But hey, they've still got the New Zealand Herald and all the mainstream media who just basically copy and paste their press releases. So let's have a look at Saturday. As we go in towards the end of the day, that front does come into Fjorden and that could spark some rain warnings. So we've got the high pressure zone up here, that slows that front right down. So as you go through to Sunday, it's decimated. Because of that high pressure belt to the north, the front runs in, it weakens. But it is worth keeping an eye on because it may track quite slowly. So the west coast has some rain risks. Elsewhere, dry and mild if you're on the eastern side of the country. And then meanwhile up here, this is when we think on Sunday, the cyclone will be at its strongest. So let's have a closer look at that. Sunday, 937 hectopascals. I mean, a cyclone storm like that, more than likely top end category 5. Now Cairns, the capital of up here of northern Queensland, they are basically hiding away from this storm for now, because as this cyclone tracks further down towards Brisbane and main centres down here like Mackay, obviously that tracks further away from Cairns. We're going to have a lot more information tomorrow in our Pacific Islands update about the future tracking of this storm. But it's worth noting here on Monday, it's actually starting to weaken. Ignore the 984 because that's just because we've zoomed out a lot. It's about 940 something by here. But it is weakening because there's a big block of high pressure way down here, south of Adelaide, but it stretches all the way up to about Brisbane, Rockhampton. That's the guiding force for that storm. So too is this high down around New Zealand. So you've got these two highs at the bottom of the screen, the cyclone at the top trying to get down between the two of them. And so if they move along left or right, it changes the tracking of where this goes. And that's why some updates show it out here in the middle of the Tasman, others show it coming into Queensland, and the other one shows it just sliding right down the middle part of Australia. I think all three of those are possible as we work out exactly where these high pressure belts are going. But this is a New Zealand video today, so as for New Zealand next week, pretty settled thanks to high pressure. So let's have a look at the rainfall for the next 7 days ahead. There is the cyclone dropping down. This is through till Monday of next week, 7 days. So it gets very close to Rockhampton. So anywhere between Townsville, Rockhampton and Brisbane, all of those places are at risk from getting that heavy rain. But for now, high pressure out here keeps most of the Tasman dry. Westerly winds we talked about brings the rain back to the west coast. So for now, it's not something we have to worry about, but it is something we have to keep an eye on. Any storm that forms in the Coral Sea always is something to keep an eye on here in New Zealand. The Coriolis effect, the way the Earth spins, naturally wants to pull storms from about here, southeastwards, right towards us. So this is an area to keep an eye on, but the high pressure zones, why it says dry all over the place, they are an invisible brick wall in the sky, keeps that storm away. So from a weather forecasting point of view, kind of exciting to talk about it, but for us here in New Zealand, for now, no immediate risk, and for Australia, question mark still remains as to where this will go. So full details tomorrow, Tuesday, in our next 7-day Pacific Islands update. We'll clearly be talking about this. And then our next Australia-only update is on Thursday, and by then, we'll have a very clear picture about where this storm system is going to be going. That's all from me for today, though. Busy start to the first full week of December. We'll catch you again tomorrow, Tuesday.